Hello, parents of fourth grade students. I am Mrs. Pohl, and I'm recording this video on Monday after I had your students for a couple of hours for orientation, and by all accounts, I think the day went really well. I thoroughly enjoyed meeting every one of them. Everybody had excellent behavior, was very respectful. Mask wearing even went really well. So thank you for sending them. I'm so pleased to be their teacher this year. I have a few notes here that I'm going to follow so I can take you through just a couple of things that you're going to see in the handbook for fourth grade when it gets posted in the next 24 hours or so. And I have my son who is helping me record and my daughter who is helping me. Not sure what she's helping doing, but she's here. So first thing I wanted to say, I'm just so eager to partner with you with your children's education this year. Knowing that we get to do this together, helping our kids discover who Christ is in the world that he created for us in all subjects and in all that we do, just feels like such a privilege. So thank you for having me this year. And as I hope I say repeatedly and live it out, please contact me with any questions, any concerns, anything that you need. ClassReach is typically the easiest way, but I can also share my cell phone number in case you wanted to text or to call. So I wanted just to quickly in this video overview some of the things that may feel a little bit different than this year, or that I think need particular note because in the fourth grade we're sort of stepping it up a little bit. The first is overall work quantity. I think it was my experience with my son last year that the step between third and fourth grade did feel meaningful in terms of quantity. I aim to start the school year a little bit slow so that we have a steady increase in that, but please do know that there will be a little bit more that your children will be asked to do than maybe felt like was needed in previous years. If that ever feels burdensome or overwhelming, please do let me know. There are certainly things that we can look at changing or addressing individually if something doesn't feel right, or if you think you're spending an inordinate amount of time on a particular subject or overall in the course of your day. The second is the use of narration. For those of you who follow Charlotte Mason, narration is something that she used often in her schools. And it is something that we aim to use a lot this year in the classroom, and I'm going to encourage you to use it at home. Narration, of course, is a student sharing what they know, either verbally through talking about it or in writing. I hope to create lots of opportunities for our children to share what they know and to chew on ideas and chew on information in their own minds, and then talk about it as a way of better understanding what they've actually understood and where we need to revisit or where there's misunderstandings. So narration is something that you will hear a lot from me. If you are new to narration or you're less sure about how to have your child narrate, I am more than happy to share ideas that are unique to your individual student or in general, just the skill of narration and how we do that in our own homes with multiple children, those sorts of things. Please reach out, but don't be taken aback when you see narration, 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 narration repeated throughout the handbook and then in lesson plans and expectations. The third, so increased work quantity, narration, and then notebooks. You saw in the class supply list that I recommended either a notebook that we're going to put some dividers into ourselves with just tabs, or that we would make one in your student's binder if you didn't purchase a notebook. Either is perfectly acceptable and either one is equally is fine, but I did want to point out to you, in case you did purchase one for your student, that we will put these tabs in ourselves or at school, and then you will be using all of these different sections at home. So our students this year are going to be recording all sorts of information in this notebook. Rocks and catechism, each week is we're assigned one from the school. We will write that assigned one, And we will do so every week in order. That way, when we're doing our memory work and practicing at home or at school, we have all of that in one place. Our next tab will be general memory work. So this will be things like first language lesson poetry, our history question and answers. Each class has a certain set of events, and I think we have 10 or 12. So as we study those periods in history, those events in history, or those people, we will be recording the question and then the answer, again, as an easy resource so that when we are working on memory work, we know exactly where to come back to look for that information. The third section is going to be math memory work. This might be a big change from last year, or excuse me, from previous years. One of the things that I have learned is that it's a lot easier to master new knowledge, new content, when we understand the language of the subject that we're working on. And so students this year in the 4th grade will have key math terms with definitions that they're expected to memorize. Once again, these will come as we go throughout the year. And each unit of our math study has a few different terms, and we will enter them all here, once again, so that we can commit them to memory, make sure we're using the same language and using it correctly, and we have an easy place to go back and reference. Our next is the commonplace. Some of you may commonplace in your everyday lives. For some of you, this will be new. So this is our opportunity as we're reading literature, reading things in history, read alouds, even our own independent reading. When we come across some language that's particularly meaningful or particularly beautiful, we are going to start to learn the habit of pausing, picking that out and writing that quote into our commonplace, and having a place, a resource to go back and to consider those things that struck us. As I say in the handbook, there aren't really many rules about commonplacing because what strikes me may be very different than what strikes you. And so I'm going to ask that our students enter at least one thing a week into this commonplace, but we need not all enter the same thing. We might see some students who really take off with commonplace and have many things to enter every day, and another student may only have one thing to enter a week. Either one is fine. We just want to start to develop the habit of pausing when we've experienced that part of a story that was particularly meaningful, or a beautiful quote, beautiful language that strikes us, and recording it. Next in our notebooks is a section called Wonder. This is just our opportunity to write down questions throughout our day. I'm hoping that our students also get into the habit of asking questions, asking more questions than we can even have answers to. I don't think every question we ask needs to have an answer right away, but in the act of noticing and wondering and then recording those wonderings, we're going to start, as we do this over weeks or months or the school year, we're going to come back to questions we asked earlier and finally have our own answers to them. Some we will want to go and pursue an answer right away by checking out a library book or looking something up on the internet. Some will naturally come back to as we continue our learning. But again, this is our opportunity to develop a habit of asking questions and sitting in questions and appreciating the questions of the world that God has given us. And then lastly, in our journal, it's called, our last entry will be books read. This is simply going to be an opportunity for us to record all the books we've read over the course of the school year. And this will be books that we do read aloud here, books that you guys do as read alouds in your own home, independent reading, assigned reading at school, all the books we read, even audiobooks, they count, will go in our books read. So that's just a quick highlight of our notebook. This should come back and forth to school and home every single day. Next, I do not have a handout, but you will see a handout posted in ClassReach that's called Circumactio. Circumactio is just Latin for rotations. I think there are 5 or 6 different stations almost, 5 or 6 different things that your students are going to be asked to do. I'm encouraging, we will use this at school, and I'm encouraging you to use it in your own home, but certainly use that as at your discretion. So So the things on there that your students will rotate through are things like practicing math facts again, looking at a piece of artwork, reading a piece of poetry, doing their own creation, artwork or woodworking or some other creation that they're enjoying. And the idea is at school, we don't often have time for some of these riches that we wish we could slow down and take more time for. So this is a small way to bring some of those riches of artwork and poetry and creating our own things into the classroom. It's also a really great classroom management mechanism. If a student finishes a certain subject or an assignment early, they will know to take out their circumactio list and to simply do the next thing that has not yet been done on their list. And when they make it through all 5 or 6, they go right back up to the beginning and they do number 1 again and they work their way through. The hope would be that every student can make their way through all 5 or 6 items each week, which may mean doing 1 or 2 of them at home on a Tuesday or a Thursday. But this will not be graded. This is really just meant to, again, bring some classroom management, to bring some riches in. And so it's not going to be graded. There aren't a lot of expectations around it, except that we encourage our students to try the different things. And then lastly, in terms of things that may feel a little bit different, in previous years, students have been responsible for independent reading in history or in science and doing at most a very short book report, something written about what they read and what they learned. We're going to try something different this year, where on a rotating schedule, we have 12 students, and so your student would be expected only to do this once every 12th time, 13th actually, 1 and 13. But they will have read over the course of a few weeks, and they will come ready on their assigned day to talk about something either from history or science, they get to pick, that they have found particularly interesting. It could be something that we're learning about formally in class, or it could be something that they have sort of pursued on their own and they've done some independent reading. The idea here is that we encourage our students to go after the things that are interesting to them, and then we're going to start to give them some opportunities to work on those presentation skills and to share with us the really cool and neat things they're learning, which I have no doubt are going to pique the interest of their classmates. And so you will see this handout in ClassReach as well about these science and history presentations. Once again, there is a schedule, so your student is only doing it once every 5 or 6 weeks. The date has already been assigned for this first round, so you'll know well in advance when it's your student's time. There are not, this is not considered a formal presentation. They don't need note cards, they don't need papers or a presentation. If your student likes those things, if your student excels at those things and feels more comfortable having those things, you are encouraged to let them do it. But it will be very laid back, again, just as a way to get them to start to share with one another, learn from one another, and begin to practice these presentation skills. Lastly, I'm going to have Mac stand up real quick and very slowly take you on a tour of our classroom. He'll just sort of do a circular shot here. We are in the church's youth group room. Your students probably shared with you that there are lots of things for us to have to think about not touching in this space, and we have covered them pretty thoroughly today. We'll continue to remind them. But we are in a unique space, lots of couches, some TVs that are covered with black screens, a little kitchenette behind us. So we're going to work really well on keeping our things to our chairs and our baskets and our TV trays that we'll be using, and staying out of the areas in our really cool classroom that we are not able to be in. All right, Mac, you want to take them on a very slow tour? actually, I'm just looking at my notes and I'm realizing I missed one, so let me quickly revisit it. We will be doing something that I'm calling Charis Cultivates, or Cultivating. And it's just an opportunity for your students to share with us the things that they're creating. As we have a creator God, I think it's so important for us to celebrate the creations of our own children, no matter how big or how small, how formal or informal. And so again, with a rotating schedule, I'm asking your student, one student each Monday and Wednesday, to bring in something that they've created and to only take a few minutes, really 2, 3, 4 minutes, to share that creation with us. If it's small and portable, they should bring it in and be ready to share with us how they've created it, what it is, why it's been interesting to them. If it's too big, maybe they just have to bring in a picture or just a description of it. But there really are no rules. I think anything that our children creates, I really want to take the opportunity to celebrate that. And so it could be, again, anything formal like woodworking or embroidery or crocheting, artwork, paintings, those sorts of things, baking, really anything that they have created. So be ready for that. There will also be a handout in Class Reach that has the schedule and some ideas in there too. Let me close by saying again, I am so eager to be your student's 4th grade teacher this year. Please reach out with any questions, any concerns at any time. I am looking forward to this partnership with you. Thank you.